The sitting is resumed. Prior to the suspension, the Honourable Chamber was in Standing Finance Committee. We return to Standing Finance Committee.
At the suspension, the Honourable House was in Standing Finance Committee. To this, we now revert.
Mr. Chairman, Head 31, Ministry of Industry, Innovation, Science and Technology, in the amount of $40,994,157.
Honourable Member for St. Michael North.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman of Committees. I would like to ask your permission, sir, to vacate this chair and to join my team in another chair for further consideration of Head 31.
Permission so granted. Honourable Minister, you may proceed at this time, first of all, to introduce your team and then to give your opening overview for approximately 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would like to draw to everyone's attention the newness of this ministry, the newness not only from the perspective of myself as minister, but also key and critical to this entire leadership team, my PS, Mr. Wayne Marshall. He's relatively new, not as new as I am, but relatively new, all the same. And with that, my introductory statement is really going to lay the foundation for the ministry, for the benefit not only of my team, but also for the rest of the House and the wider Barbadian public. So I would beg your indulgence, Mr. Chairman, for some time and latitude relative to this introductory statement. I will not trespass too greatly on your patience.
Honourable Minister, you should not trespass at all.
Yes, Chair. I will try, I'll endeavor, I'll give it my level best not to trespass.
Yeah, but before you get into your statement, Honourable Minister, I want you to proceed with the introduction of the full team, those persons who are with you, so that we are aware of who are here to be in a position to answer the questions, and for most importantly for the records of this House as well. Thank you.
Okay, no problem at all. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. With me today, Mr. Chair, is our Permanent Secretary Acting, Mr. Wayne Marshall. We have Mr. Owen Harewood, Director of Digital Solutions. We have Mr. Charles Bosset, Director of Digital Infrastructure. We have Mr. Charles Cyrus, Director, Science, Market Research and Technology. Mr. Rodney Payne, Project Manager, Program Execution Unit. Edward Juman, Director, Efficiency Unit. Ms. Yvette Brathwaite, Accountant. Hazley Strawn, Digital Policy Coordinator. Ms. Elsa Webster, Project Manager for the National ID. And we have Mr. Mark Hill, CEO, BIDC, and our Senior Economist in the Industry Unit, Ms. Patricia Bain. So I'll commence with my introductory remarks, Mr. Chairman. The Ministry of Industry, Innovation, Science and Technology's mandate is to lead both the digital and the industrial revolutions in Barbados. Therefore, MIST will bring Barbados fully into the digital era through the increased use of digital channels by individuals and companies, especially as it relates to access to public services. This drive towards the strategic, effective, and efficient adaptation and deployment of technological solutions will result in change, especially within the public sector, where various processes will be deconstructed and reconstructed to foster greater efficiency, to enhance service delivery, and to strengthen public sector skills. Equally, and with reference to industry, over many years, our local manufacturers and producers have contributed significantly to our country's foreign exchange reserves. They have either saved foreign exchange through the supply of high-quality products that can satisfy local demand, or they have earned foreign exchange by exporting those same products to our regional neighbors and to our international counterparts. But even as we grapple with changes in the geopolitics of this world, climate change, globalization, changing tastes and demands by consumers, and of course, the greater reliance on science, technology, and digital services, my ministry recognizes the need to refocus our country and our people on new and rapidly developing industries that possess the potential to create tremendous opportunities for our people. These opportunities, Mr. Chairman and colleagues, will be carved out in more nascent industries like green or renewable energy, or in the multiplicity of life sciences, while at the same time, they can also be uncovered through innovations in more mature industries, like those related to agro-processing. The twin issues of the global pandemic and the deleterious effects of climate change have created a deep sense of urgency for small island developing states like Barbados to reconstruct sectors and to develop economies that are resilient, diversified, innovative, and sustainable. With the island's key foreign exchange earning sector of tourism taking a debilitating hit from COVID-19, the mandate of this ministry to build an export sector that can deliver US $1 billion in foreign exchange earnings by 2030 has taken on even greater importance. Accordingly, one of government's major objectives in the short to medium term is to increase the export of goods and services as part of our plans to stimulate greater economic activity, create jobs, and shore up the island's foreign reserves through increased export earnings. In light of this, MIST, the ministry that I have the honor and privilege to lead, has an aggressive agenda to completely transform the public sector and by extension, all of Barbados. Colleagues, I can assure you that our daily efforts within this ministry are set squarely on delivering improved results in the following two overarching areas. One, relative to industry, to increase our country's level of exports through supporting export-oriented businesses that can earn on average in excess of US $10 million in exports annually. And 2, relative to innovation, science, and technology, to improve performance in key global indices such as the ease of doing business and ICT and e-government readiness, as these provide useful benchmarks for our performance. I'm therefore pleased to take this opportunity to update Parliament today on the work and plans of my ministry. And of course, before we go through all of that, I want to thank each and every one of the members of the team that are here with me. Not only those who are present in this room, but I want to thank all and applaud all of the officials of the ministry across the length and breadth thereof for the hard work and dedication that they have demonstrated thus far to the goals and the objectives of this ministry. Mr. Chairman, funding in the amount of $40,994,157 is required by this ministry to carry out its activities for the fiscal year 2022 to 2023. One of the primary draws on this requested amount relates to government's Public Sector Modernization Program, PSMP. Through additional and significant funding support from the Inter-American Development Bank, this program will see an investment in the improvement and modernization of the operations of the public service in the amount of US $40 million. That is a significant investment in the modernization of our operations as a public sector and a public service. This program has a number of transformative components, including the implementation of an e-services platform, the introduction of online services, the implementation of an electronic document and records management system, and of course, the digitization of our public service records. Ultimately, Chair and colleagues, the Public Sector Modernization Program is the primary vehicle of our government to, 1, facilitate its digital transformation mandate, and 2, to improve the overall efficiency and effectiveness of the public sector. Taking a moment, sir, to reflect on the performance of this ministry to date, colleagues will be pleased to know that we have already made tremendous progress relative to the digitization of government's records. This progress is encapsulated in 2 main accomplishments. 1, firstly, the Digitization Center, which was established at Vaucluse in St. Thomas. It is really the focal point of government's digitization efforts, and it currently runs 2 shifts. One shift runs from 8:30 in the morning to 4 p.m. in the afternoon, and the second shift runs from 4:30 through to 10 p.m. And we are currently in the process, and we will soon establish a 3rd shift that will run from 10:30 p.m. through to 7 a.m. That demonstrates the commitment of our government to the process of digitizing the volumes of government and public records that we have to digitize. The second accomplishment relates to the number of records that have already been digitized, Mr. Chairman. As at February 23rd this year, 657,600 records have already been digitized from 8 ministries, departments, and agencies, MDAs. Furthermore, I ask you to note that records are currently being processed for an additional 6 MDAs. And upon their completion, it is expected that a further 1,108,500 records will be digitized. But we're not stopping there, Mr. Chairman and colleagues. My ministry expects to commence processing of records for yet another 10 agencies on March the 7th, 2022. So as you can see, sir and colleagues, this ministry continues to busily execute the work and mandate of this government in digitizing the significant volume of records accumulated over many years. Of course, the task is great, but I'm happy to say that I lead an equally great team, and we are up to the task. Chairman, I will now ask that we turn our attention to another key initiative of MIST, the Smart City. The first phase of my ministry's Smart City implementation will see the deployment of free public Wi-Fi across our capital city of Bridgetown. Subsequent phases are slated to include the implementation of smart services such as parking, environmental monitoring, traffic management, the use of mobile apps for self-guided tours, and information on places of interest in Bridgetown. Sir, this may not be widely known, but the provision of free Wi-Fi access across Bridgetown has already begun, with access currently being available in the Fairchild Street and Princess Alice bus terminals, around the Treasury building as well. And soon to be added, very soon to be added, will be the Cheapside Market, Jubilee Gardens, the area surrounding the General Post Office, around Parliament Building, Swan Street, and Suttle Street, are listed amongst the key areas that will be targeted in the very near future. Colleagues, and in particular my honourable friend from the city of Bridgetown, would be pleased to know that it is our intention to ensure that the free Wi-Fi access is also extended to cover the residential districts within the city. And this in particular gives me tremendous pride, Mr. Chairman, as I can envision little children in Nelson Street, Wellington Street, in Greenfield, Warren Street, Bedford Lane, etc., being able to access free Wi-Fi to execute their studies, to carry out their studies, and to be able to focus on their studies with that access. And not only that, that maybe their parents will be able to use that free Wi-Fi access to be able to embark on commercial endeavor that can bring a stream of income into their homes. And this, Mr. Chairman, is why myself and these fine men and women come to work every single day to ensure that we can make this vision a reality. We have so much to say, Mr. Chairman, and so little time. I wish to move on quickly to an area that is dear to my heart, that of innovation. Several initiatives which have been designed to foster innovation have been pursued by the Science, Market Research and Innovation Unit. Firstly, I wish to underscore that innovation is a vital factor in economic growth and prosperity. To this end, our government is seeking to develop a culture of innovation through recognition and reward. Accordingly, my ministry has piloted the School Innovation Award. This is an award that is designed to reward students and teachers for their creativity and their innovativeness. Secondly, we acknowledge that there is the reality of a digital divide, and the desire of this government is that there be widespread utilization of the various services that we are going to be offering when they're placed online. Therefore, the ministry has introduced a Digital Acceleration Ambassadors Program. And through this program, student volunteers are deployed as digital ambassadors to assist in helping and educating citizens across the island in the use of digital services, particularly those that are being used by the government. Thirdly, in the arena of innovation development, my ministry will execute the 6-week Science and Technology Summer Camp, which is designed to expose campers to careers in STEAM, whilst at the same time introduce them to local scientists and technologists. And finally, Mr. Chairman, MIS shall seek to execute the Robotics Collaboration and Education Project. The aim of this particular project is to introduce primary and secondary school children and also university level students to the social and service robots that are available out there. The allocation for this project's execution is $60,000 in this fiscal, and one of its key outcomes would be for participants to learn how to program robots for a myriad of social applications, including health, education, sales and marketing, and of course, even elder care. As I begin to wind up my presentation, colleagues, I will ask that you stay with me as we now explore the realm of the digital and national ID. Given our government's progressive move towards e-governance, it is well appreciated that such services need to be both useful and secure. That is, it is essential that the person using government's e-services can be identified and authenticated digitally by the relevant authority. This requires the development of a digital identity concept with supporting frameworks and infrastructure. Therefore, MIS proposes the implementation of a 2-part digital identification program comprising of 1, a new, more secure plastic national ID card, and 2, a digital mobile identity application. Very quickly, Chair, the new secure plastic ID is accepted that, and widely accepted that the existing laminated ID that we have is no longer fit for purpose. It is prone to fraud. It is not readily accepted outside of Barbados, and therefore it must be changed. MIS, in partnership with the Electoral Department, proposes the replacement of the existing card with a more secure plastic ID card with more embedded security features. This card will facilitate everyday transactions where in-person identification is required, and it will also help to cut down on fraudulent use, as it will be very difficult to replicate. With reference to the digital mobile identity application, Mr. Chair, in addition to replacing the laminated card, the Electoral Department and MIS proposes a digital mobile identity that will be issued as an app that will be downloaded on the mobile phone of the bearer. The mobile version of the cardholder's national ID will be linked to a secure infrastructure and trust services that facilitate identification and authentication within a digital environment. Cybersecurity, therefore, Mr. Chairman, is where I would want to end on this part of the presentation. With all of these activities and services that will be introduced very shortly by my ministry, I do not have to tell you, sir, that there must be a strong focus on cybersecurity. This is even more apparent as our government moves forward rapidly with our digital transformation agenda that has already seen significant uptake in our online services. National cybersecurity policies that provide the right legislative framework are foundational to our efforts to ensure not only a resilient, but a robust IT infrastructure and e-services. As you can see, Mr. Chairman, we have an ambitious, challenging, yet highly exciting agenda relative to innovation, science, and technology. And I have not even begun to scratch the surface of the suite of programs therein, but I digress. I will close now with reference to industry, Mr. Chair, with your indulgence. With reference to our industry component, time will not permit me in this introductory statement to expand on all of the exciting initiatives and projects that we currently have moving. But I am hoping that they will be fleshed out during the course of an ensuing discussion. But before I wrap up, I would like to highlight some of the strategic priorities of my ministry relative to the development of industry. For context, sir, we have seen certified exports activity amongst exporting businesses fall from 238 participating exporters to only 80 active exporters nationally, from 238 to 80. Accordingly, members of the last BLP administration felt that an export-oriented industrial policy was necessary, and I can indicate to the Honourable House that such was started by and led by former Prime Minister, the late Professor Owen Arthur, and this policy is now well advanced in its development. Its primary goal would be to address the rapid decline in the number of firms and entrepreneurs participating in industry, and equally important, to increase our export activity. Ultimately, the export-oriented industrial policy and framework will seek to drive innovation and enable double-digit growth for all export enterprises and entrepreneurs, with an overarching focus on creating value. So therefore, what is our growth strategy, Mr. Chairman and colleagues? I start, Mr. Chairman, with a declaration that science is industry and industry is science. And this declaration demonstrates the almost perfect and natural marriage that now exists with the combination of the portfolios of industry with innovation, science, and technology. To that end, my ministry, through the Barbados Investment and Development Corporation, has developed projects and initiatives which will address key challenges in industry and deliver economic growth to our country. I will now list them, and I hope that through the discussion that ensues that we'll be able to flesh out each of them, but I will now just give them here to whet the appetite of my parliamentary colleagues. Firstly,
Honourable Minister,
yes,
you will
Chair.
have plenty of time. I've given you the latitude you've asked for.
No problem.
So you need now to wrap up, as you will have more time during the course of this discussion to get into the details which I know you so eagerly want to get into. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I will wrap up. Just to say that some of the things that we're going to talk about will be the International Food Science Center, the eco-industrial parts, the life sciences parts. Those are a whole host and others that we have slated to bring economic activity to Barbados and, of course, to increase our exports. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will now pause and allow questions from my parliamentary colleagues. My team stands ready to answer any questions that will come to the fore.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Just let me give some guidelines for the benefit of your team. I'm sure that you are quite familiar with the guidelines since you've been part of this debate for the past 3 days. You're given 5 minutes, Honourable Minister, to respond. You have to, before you proceed, I'm sorry, you have to move the head, and then I will continue. Please move the head, Honourable Minister.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I beg to move that head 31 in the amount of $40,994,157 stand part.
As I was saying, Honourable Member, you will have 5 minutes to respond to any questions from your colleagues at any given point in time. And members of your team will be given 3 minutes to respond to questions which you may so designate to them. I also want to add, for the records of this House, we're asking members of the team, before you begin to speak, please introduce yourself and the title or office which you hold within the ministry. Honourable Member for St. James Central.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Honourable Minister, let me take the opportunity at the outset to congratulate you on the assumption of office. Formally, that is, I've done so obviously before. And to thank you for your very in-depth presentation. I should also take the opportunity to congratulate you and your team for the very ambitious, challenging, and exciting program which has been put together and rolled out in a very preliminary way before us just now. Honourable Minister, I must speak to you in the context of the business environment in Barbados. And I want to use this opportunity, not because I think that in any way I would want to be unfair to you, quite the contrary. I want for you to be able to point me in the direction of which of your team would be in the best position to assist the country in coming to understand the position that we are in today with respect to a very vexing problem for the average micro and small business person in Barbados. If I am a plumber, for argument's sake, Minister, I have my own business, and I am reached by those people who are my clients by way of access to my cell phone number. I may, from time to time, have some challenges with my particular service provider. I may, however, also be a person who has had that service provider for 8, 9, or 10 years, maybe more. And the reality is that my clients have come to know me as a result of my number being whatever the number is, and they know how to access me at any hour of the day or night, any bank holiday, whenever a pipe bursts. Pipes have the unfortunate habit, Minister, of not giving us notice when they're going to burst, but they just do so. And I find that the plumbing community has then to respond to challenges at a last minute. And that is not only true of plumbers, it is true of several other micro business people who are providing services around the country. You need to reach them at the last minute or at short notice, and you go to them via the number that they have, that cell phone number that they keep in the hip pocket or the back pocket or wherever. But I may have, that service provider may have, that plumber or whoever may have a challenge with his service provider. I don't want to get into the names of the service providers, but you may wish then to say, I'm going to leave this particular service provider and go elsewhere in the search of better service. To do so, however, in Barbados today, you would have to change your telephone number. And you're disadvantaged as a business person because none of us have a cell phone number that is recorded in a directory anywhere. So I can't go and say I'm trying to find a plumber by the name of Davidson Ishmael. I have to go find his cell phone number. I have to go by the number I have. And if he changes, then I got a little challenge in finding where it is that his new number is. This has been the bane of the existence of virtually every small and micro business player in Barbados who's not operating necessarily from an office, but is an itinerant person moving from point to point in the island. Their contact is their cell phone number. And their trade is compromised by their inability to move from one cell phone service provider to another in a seamless way and take that number with them. It is a concept which is referred to by the more technically minded people as number portability. Now, that issue, Minister, preceded this administration coming into office. I know because I have heard in the cabinet that there have been discussions with the cell phone service providers. It preceded, sir, us as far back as when we would have been in the last government, when the Labour Party would have been in government for the last time. This discussion began back then. And I feel, sir, that we need now to be able to engage the country, and I want to give you the opportunity, or your team the opportunity, to engage the country with precision as to where we are with this matter and what we may confidently expect to be the end point at which this issue will finally be put to rest in Barbados.
Thank you very much, Minister, for the question. It is a vexing issue. I agree 100%. And it does affect the way that we do business in Barbados, and not only Barbados, because the issue is broader and bigger than just Barbados. I actually had the privilege in my very first 2 weeks on the job to sit in on a co-TED session which focused on ICT, and number portability was one of the main issues that was discussed during that session. Not only that, but in my very first courtesy call with the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, that too was one of the issues that was highlighted then. And significant progress has been made regionally. And I can tell you that this has been something that our Prime Minister, the Honourable Member for St. Michael North East, has also piloted quite a bit in regional circles, especially when she was the head of CARICOM. Before I will allow our Director of Infrastructure and Cybersecurity, Mr. Clifford Boste, I will allow him to come in to speak more in a fulsome manner with reference to timelines, etc., because I know that he has already advised me that quite a bit of work has been done locally. In terms of draft cabinet papers already done and we're looking to have legislation coming very soon, but I will let him speak at this point in time to give a more fulsome response to your question. Mr. Bostic?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Clifford Bostic, Acting Director for Digital Infrastructure in MIST. Yes, a very good question, Honourable Minister. Yes, it is a vexing question. We have been at this since 2017 to be exact, and when there was we saw the consolidation of the market when it comes to telecommunications, where several companies were absorbed by Liberty Global, and one of the conditions was that they be ready for number portability in 2017. We started the project then, and we had 2 delays. Each of the service providers had some issues that had to be resolved, so we had to stop. But we have started the project back in October 2021, and we have completed a number of things that we are going to be using to make local number portability for Barbadians realizable. We are delivering to the market fixed or landline number portability as well as mobile portability. We are going to implement legislation that is catering towards the harmonization of legislation across CARICOM. This is one of the things that is now high on the table, high on the priority list for implementation by CARICOM through our Caribbean Telecommunications Union. That is that we have a regulatory framework that is regional, that allows us to provide services in a seamless manner right across this region in the same manner as which our major providers that you know of, Digicel and Liberty Global, having a single network which will allow for a single ICT space. So yes, number portability is coming. It is going to be with us by middle of 2022. A commitment has been given by both service providers to those dates, while they are working along with MIS as well as a consultancy firm that has been doing number portability across Europe as well as across the Caribbean region. We are learning from the errors and mistakes of all those countries who have implemented number portability. And when we come to the market in mid-2022, you will see both mobile as well as fixed services number portability for our customers. This has been a long wait, and trust me, our customers will be very well happy with this, because they will be able to keep their fixed number as well as their mobile number. They will be able to move from one provider to another. And by the way, we have a third operator, service provider in Barbados that has been licensed, and that's KW Telecommunications Limited. And they are also preparing for number portability as well as preparing to launch their services in Barbados. I thank you.
So if I'm understanding correctly, then it would be that across the 3 service providers, we will, by June, which is the middle of 2022, be able to have number portability both for mobile and land-based phones.
Correct, that's correct.
Sorry, I didn't hear a yes?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, fine, thank you. I only have one other question, Mr. Chairman, if I may do so now. And that, again, is very business-oriented. And, Minister, I throw this out there. You and I have had the benefit of an engagement at which I raised the matter previously. We were in the company, the very distinguished company of the minister responsible for, the senior minister with oversight of infrastructure at the time. It relates, sir, to the question of the model of exportation of bulk rum from Barbados, which we have historically done, which some people have historically done for what might be pennies or odd cents on the dollar. And then a value-added process takes place, which is to the benefit of blenders and bottlers who do not necessarily reside in Barbados. There is another model where it is all done here. There are countries which have seen the benefit of capitalizing on the opportunity to build out industry and the competitiveness of their industry by linking the industrial effort to the geographical area where that effort is conducted. Blue Mountain Coffee in Jamaica is a classic example of that, but in the context of rum, the Jamaicans and the Guyanese, and indeed the Trinidadians, have now come to a point where they have seen the importance of what they call, or what the industry calls, geographical indicators, which are speaking specifically to the inputs and the conditions of production of the rum in those particular areas. Now, it would seem to me that the home of rum should be no different. In fact, I would have hoped that the home of rum would have been the leader in doing these things in the world. Minister, you know my views personally, and again, I only speak now because I am a minister responsible for business, you're a minister responsible for industry, and we have the entire country as our theater listening to understand why there are some challenges that remain unaddressed up to this point in our development. If we are to get, my judgment is that if we are to get to the double-digit type of growth that we want to get during the course of this year, then we have to remove all the obstacles, all the traditional barriers, all the roadblocks in order to make sure that industry is able to do the best that industry can do. And my question, therefore, is, given the fact that we have a very well-established, highly reputable rum industry in Barbados, we know that we are using local inputs like water, we know that we are using aging methods which are unique and so on. What is the concern that your ministry has with respect to geographical indicators? What is the roadmap that your ministry has with respect to use of geographical indicators? Certainty of the content of our premium product is something that is vital if we are going to be able to market that premium product across continental United States, continental Europe, continental Africa, which are the markets that we must now command as having the oldest and probably the finest product in the world. but we cannot do so easily unless we use the same strategies of geographical indicators that our competitors have overtaken us and have started to use.
Thank you for that question, Minister. You're absolutely correct. There is no doubt that those products and countries that use geographical indicators, they see tremendous benefits. I will let the CEO of the BIDC speak to those benefits as we go through. But broadly speaking, there has been effort made, and I would say tremendous effort made by former minister responsible for industry, Mr. Ronald Toppin. I think that's when the geographical indicator discussion would have actually commenced, and significant headway was made at that point in time. The challenge that you have with a geographical indicator is that once you put that out there on a product, every product or most of the products who want to be able to export by using that geographical indicator want to benefit from the mileage and the marketing power of that geographical indicator, they have to subscribe to the standards of the geographical indicator. So of course, invariably, when you're bringing multiple players from an industry together, from a sector together, and you're asking them to agree on one set way of doing things, one set way of producing a product, you will invariably find that there will be some friction, especially when you've had players that have been doing it one way for hundreds of years, as is the case with rum. So we've had discussions with all the various producers, and we've had meetings. Robust discussion has taken place, and we're hoping that we're getting closer and closer to a healthy middle ground that would allow us to see the geographical indicator come to fruition in a way that will benefit all of the players and no one feels disadvantaged by the geographical indicator being out there. So that's to update that we have been making some progress, but the challenge now is being able to find a workable geographical indicator solution and orientation that will benefit all of the players and that each one can subscribe to fully. I'll pass over now to, and let me just say in closing on that point, that there is an intention to have further dialogue and to bring all of the industry players again together. I was in a previous capacity before when the last discussion took place, and now I'm in a new capacity, so I'm hoping that I can bring the players together very soon to be able to see how we can advance those discussions and how we can resolve any of the concerns, challenges, issues, hurdles, so that we can get this geographical indicator put in place in the shortest possible time. I'll hand you over now to the CEO of BADC, and he can speak more in a broad way, in a broad sense, relative to what a geographical indicator really is and how we foresee that it will benefit one of the oldest products known to man and one of the best in from Barbados, our rum. CEO.
Okay, good afternoon to the Parliament. Well, as far as the GA is concerned, there's, pardon? Yeah, sorry. Mark Hill, CEO of BIDC Export Barbados. As far as the GA is concerned, there's a number of issues that we have to address concerning this particular instrument for moving the industry forward. First, what I want to underscore is that a GA is used in the agricultural food business sector, primarily to help create commercial value for those products that are generated by those specific markets. So for example, we have, if it is cheese, this cheese is coming from a particular destination, it is made this specific way, the milk is coming from these particular cows, and these cows have this particular background or historical association with that geographic space. The issue that we're dealing with here, particularly with our GI, is that our GI has been built out on a framework of reputation. And therefore, finding the geographic specificity to root the GI in Barbados is kind of complex, because what we have based on that reputation argument is a lot of marketing arguments emerging that is impacting on the type of GI and how the GI should be shaped and how it should be formed. So to that end, when we look at our goals as an economy, particularly how do we grow our rum beyond its $80 million threshold, because that's how much we've been making in rum, and we want to move that at least to 100 million to 150 million US over the short term. how does the GI help us to achieve that? So that's one of the things that we have to look at in a significant way. So when we look at the numbers, the bulk rum aspect are the top manufacturers in our tier system. You have two top exporters, one that is doing around 15 million per annum in exports, another that is doing around 10 million, and then at the bottom end we have manufacturers that are doing just around $300,000. So when we have such a broad spectrum of players in this industry, what it's saying to us is that we have to approach our GI in a more innovative way, and pretty much using the European model, whereby they have a layer type application for GIs, for products of origin, and also for products of tradition. We're thinking that we have to approach the GI in a broader framework and not just in a narrow framework. In addition to that, we also believe that our geographic indicator needs to have some more scientific support behind it to root it in our geographical context. So as I wrap up, for example, we know that there's 4 key inputs into rum. So of course we know that the water, the molasses, which is imported for most of these manufacturers. So none of the manufacturers, except for one who doesn't really export, uses 100% Barbados molasses. The rest of them import all of their molasses. Maybe just source some from the Ministry of Agriculture, just a percentage. The yeast in particular, some manufacturers import, and there's some that cultivate their own yeast on island. And we think that that is the area, that is the hot spot that we can focus on, so that we can do a biotech study of the yeast strains that we have on island, and that should give us a sense of what is unique about our rums. From a scientific point of view, our bacteria, because we're a small island, we're out in the Atlantic, we're coral reef island, which means that our environment is more alkaline. So there's some biomarker dimensions that we can draw on to help really root us in our geographical context. So what we're saying is that we need a broad approach to the GI, one that facilitates growth and expansion and allow for a broader industrial model and not just a traditional heritage model. Thank you very much.
And I want to thank you, Mr. Hill, for the exposition. And I asked another question then. How practical is it, even at this preliminary, well, I don't want to say preliminary, but even at this stage of the considerations, would it be to look at an approach which sees us harness those brands which are our premium brands, recognizing that there are a variety of rums which are on the Barbados market, but what we really want to do is to make sure that the standard and quality of the very best is what we are pushing across the waters internationally.
Yeah, it's a good question, Minister. It's something that I have thought of myself, and something that requires some research, and I believe that the team will undertake that research in short order. Relative to how do we do it, if we can have a geographical indicator that is specific to premium brands, and then other brands that are not considered premium.
Honourable Minister, would you kindly raise your volume, come a bit closer to the mic? Thank you.
Apologies. Yeah. Is this better?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. What I was saying is that, you know, I've given thought to the idea of having a bit of a differentiation in the geographical indicators relative to premium brands versus non-premium brands, to see if that can allow us to move ahead with getting the geographical indicator, especially as it relates to those premium brands, which have the capacity to earn us a lot more in terms of our exports and our foreign exchange. So it is something that is going to take the attention of the ministry, and something that we're going to look into to see if there's a way that we can classify and do the geographical indicator based on that classification.
I'm obliged. Thank you very much, Minister, and thank you very much, Mr. Hill.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Michael West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I also want to echo the sentiments of the Honourable Member from St. James Central, and congratulate the Honourable Minister on his appointment. I'm sure that with his eagerness and his youthful exuberance, he will be very successful. Now, I recognize that one of the stated goals of your ministry is to create and safeguard a world-class, liberalized telecommunications and ICT networks. And as the Honourable Member from St. James Central said, as he described the telecommunications industry in Barbados is probably best described as an oligopoly, given that there are only 2 or 3 carriers. Now, the Minister brought up number portability as a vexing issue, as